Hi, and welcome to my channel. Or if you're a returning subscriber, hi again. It's so nice to see you back here for another video. My name's Teslark, and today I'm going to show you how you can use epoxy resin, some holographic foils, and pressed flowers to make a really beautiful trinket dish. Springtime always makes me want to work with flowers. I feel all of these creative juices kind of stirring around, and everything is so bright and lush and beautiful that I really want to reflect that in my art. So I thought today we'd go ahead and use some pressed flowers and also some holographic foils to make a really cool tray. As always, all the materials that I used for this project will be linked in the description below, so if anybody's curious, all of that information will be down there for you. And let's just hop into today's project. For this project, I'll be using some pre-dried flowers, so I've just got the ones that I want to use set off on a little plate to the side, so they're really handy when the time comes. Next, I've got my holographic foils here, and my first step is going to be to cut out those foils so it's really flush with the pattern that I want to use. So for this one, I don't want to use this larger lower rows, so I'm really carefully going in with a pair of craft scissors, and I'm just cutting out the part of the flower that I want to use. And now that I have that piece detached, I'm just going to cut a little bit of this plastic and get it as close to the actual pattern as I possibly can. And when you're working with these foils, you'll see that one side will be holographic and the other side will be printed in black. And I like to use the side that's printed in black when I'm cutting my foils out, just because it's a lot easier to see exactly where the design is. And I will be pouring this tray in two different layers. So the first layer, I'm going to pour 100 milliliters of resin and use my holographic foils along with my flowers, and then I'll be finishing it up the second day. So I went ahead and I pre-mixed 100 milliliters of clear resin, so just 50 milliliters of resin with 50 milliliters of hardener. This tray typically holds about 150 milliliters, but again, I do want to pour in two separate layers. After I've got my first layer of resin poured, I'm going to go ahead and use my popsicle stick and work that around the outer rim, just to make sure that I can get any of those air bubbles that I can see starting to form up to the surface, where I can easily pop them with my heat gun before moving on to the next step. And just a quick reminder that if you are getting some value out of this video and you're finding it useful, please don't forget to give it a like. It not only helps out my channel a whole lot, but it also lets me know that I'm making content that you guys want to see from me. Now that I've popped any bubbles that I can see forming in the resin, I'm going to start to lay in my holographic foils. And I'm laying them down so the black is facing me, and that's because when I pull this out of the mold, this is going to be the bottom of it. So I want to have those pretty rainbows for the top part, so I'm making sure that the black is facing me. And I'm just adjusting this guy a little bit. I could see that there was a bubble starting to form under there, so I just lifted it up and placed it back down. And next I'll just place my second holographic foil, again making sure that the black is facing up towards me, and I'm going to move my mold around for when I place my flowers. And my next step will be to layer in my flowers. And you guys should do this with gloves on. I don't know what I was thinking not using gloves. So please do as I say, not as I do. Make sure you're wearing gloves whenever you're working with resin that's still wet. But I'm very carefully just layering in my flowers. And I am using pre-pressed, pre-dried flowers in this video, but if you're interested in how to dry flowers on your own, I do have a few videos here on YouTube where I go over that process, so I'll make sure to link some of those in the description that you can check out once you're done with this video. It's important that a part of your flower or your leaves or whatever you're using is touching the wet resin, and that's going to help those flowers stay into place. If they were just on the holographic foils, they would slide around quite a bit. I'm also using my popsicle stick just to make some little adjustments and make sure that the flowers and leaves are lined up the way that I want them to be. Also, for some of the smaller pieces like the Queen Anne's lace, I find it's easiest to use a pair of tweezers to place the flowers instead of trying to mess around with them with my fingers. But once I'm happy with how all of my holographic foils and my plants are looking in this piece, I'm going to go ahead and let this cure for 24 hours, covering it up first just to protect it from any dust or cat hair before moving on to the next step. Alright, so we're moving forward in time by about 24 hours here. My piece is really solid, nicely cured, and I'm ready to pour the background color. So I've got another 100 milliliters of clear resin here. Into that, I'm going to add some alcohol ink by Pinata Colors. It's the Matia Black, along with the Space Gray Mica Powder by Arteza. The general rule of thumb whenever you're mixing pigments with resin is you want to keep it about 90% resin to 10% pigment. Any more than that and your resin may have some problems curing. After I add my pigments, you'll see how it all stays towards the top of the resin, so I'll be using a popsicle stick to mix all of that pigment thoroughly throughout my resin, making sure that I'm scraping both the sides and the bottom of my container as I go, as I want to make sure that this is all one homogeneous color. I really love using this combination of colors because this black alcohol ink is really dark and inky and lovely, and the mica powder adds a really pretty metallic shine to the finished product. And a good way to see how pigmented your resin is to check and see how it looks at the end of your popsicle stick. Then you can adjust accordingly. But I'm happy with how this is looking, so I'm gonna go ahead and move on to the next step, which will be pouring the remainder of this into my mold until it's completely full. And I like to pour my resin from a small, high stream to allow some air bubbles to pop on their way down. The resin that I use is quite viscous, and once again, I will have that linked in the description down below. But especially when I'm getting towards the end of the mold, I like to slow down a little bit just to make sure that I don't overfill my mold. Now that the mold is completely filled right up to the rim, there's no extra space, but it's also not overly filled. I'm going to go ahead and use my heat gun one more time to pop any bubbles that might be forming on the surface. And next, I'll cover this up again and wait another 24 hours to let this resin cure completely before we pull it out of the mold. I really hope that you're finding this video to be helpful so far, and if you are liking my content, don't forget to subscribe as I do post weekly. Alright, so I went ahead and I let that second layer of resin cure overnight. So it's nice and solid, ready to be pulled out of the mold, and let's go ahead and pop it out and see how it turned out. And here is our finished piece. It's looking so pretty. Those holographic foils really show up nicely against that black background, and the little florals in here add such a nice touch. And I'll definitely make sure to take some footage of this guy in the natural light so you can see it a little bit better. But overall, I'm so happy with this piece, and I can't wait to hear what you guys think of it below in the comments. If you are interested in some more holographic foil tutorials from me, I have a couple of them here on YouTube, so I'll make sure to link those in the description down below as well. And as always, thank you so much for being here. Thank you for spending part of your day with me, especially if you made it all the way to the end of this video. And if you did make it all the way to the end of the video, leave me some sort of animal emoji in the comments below just to confuse anyone who hasn't made it this far. I really hope that this video inspires you to make something of your own today, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye! Alright, editing Tess here, and so looking at this piece a little bit more closely, I can see where some of my flowers got eaten up by that black resin, which I kind of like how it looks like the flowers are sort of coming in and out of the resin, but I also think that that could be corrected by pouring another very thin layer of clear resin over the top of the flowers once that first layer has cured. Anyway, I'm still super in love with this piece, and I'm really curious to hear what you guys think of it in the comments down below. Do you like how the flowers are coming in and out of the resin, or do you think that I should add another clear coat to make sure that I keep all of those florals intact? Let me know in the comments below, and thank you guys as always for being here. I'll see you really soon.